Now let's expand our view and see if we can see how the working memory system is involved in other kinds of mental tasks. Suppose somebody says, hey, imagine a tiger. Now, what is it to imagine a tiger? Well, a lot of people report they will generate a visual image of a tiger. So visual images of a tiger are produced when we activate our tiger memory, right, in our visual system here, and then that activity is sent up to the working memory system. So we're going to reactivate a memory of a tiger when we are asked to make an image, a visual image of a tiger. And again, this would be the visual image of a tiger. If somebody said to imagine the roar of a tiger, we would be activating the auditory areas of the brain. But for the vision of a tiger, we trigger internally, so it's not like the tiger is really there. We are generating an internal image of a tiger in our mind's eye, as it were. As it turns out, there's a lot of variation in how vivid this imagery really is. But in brains studied, even though there might be differences in the vividness, what scientists have discovered is that it's the visual system that gets turned on again when we imagine what something looks like. Another example would be you might have a song in your head, Well, what's going on there? Well, that would be auditory memories. The memory of the melody of a song is now providing the input to the working memory system. And so we sort of hear the tune in our head. What about just thinking? Well, a verbal thought occurs when it's language areas that are providing the input to the working memory system. So if I'm thinking I'm going to have a pizza for lunch, right, I might sort of think that as a kind of a sentence in my mind. That's a verbal thought. Well, that would be the language areas providing input to my working memory system. So it's verbal because it was the language areas providing the input. And we've learned before what it is to sort of have the concept of a tiger in our brain. We've got areas of the brain that are linking up what a tiger looks like, what a tiger sounds like, the sound of the word tiger, what a tiger feels like, etc. That would be the concept of tiger. Well, if we activate this concept, and then that concept then sends signals to the working memory system, right? So we've activated this area of the brain, and those tiger neurons are sending activity up to the working memory system. Then we're having a tiger thought. So thinking, if we're doing it in the verbal mode, thinking is when our language systems are sending inputs to the working memory system. So we want to think about the working memory system as sort of like a workspace, a really useful, important workspace. The contents of our working memory are what we're currently conscious of, but then the system here, the working memory system, that's not like the dead end here. This system sends information back to lots of different places in the brain for further processing. So whatever it is we're thinking about, well, that can be sent back to the language areas to trigger the next thought. Whatever it is we're thinking about, that can be used to search the long-term memory system to activate related information, related memories. So this is a nice architecture here, that whatever's in the working memory system is going to be sent back to other parts of the brain for further processing. Let's use our little icon, our hard drive for the long-term memory system. So whatever you're currently thinking about can be used to search your long-term memory system. And scientists think that in this search process, memories that are related to what you're currently thinking about are more likely to be activated, just due to the kind of the wiring, how your memory was organized in the first place. When we learn new things, we tend to link it to other things that are related to what we just learned. So your memory system is one where when you search it, you're going to tend to activate related ideas, related memories, related information. And that means then when we retrieve this information, it's very likely to be related to the thought that triggered it, right? So when we retrieve a memory, we activate that memory and then load it up into the working memory system, and we have the experience of a retrieved memory, and hopefully it is a thought that makes sense given what you were thinking about a moment ago. So because related memories tend to be activated, see, this is why we can enjoy purposeful thinking and intelligent problem solving. This feature of our brains is really handy. that when we search memory, we tend to activate related information. That gives our brains the capacity to do some good thinking. Now let's return to our neurological patient's Clive. As you saw in the films, he was able to carry on conversations. His intelligence was not diminished in any kind of way. He had normal perceptual qualities. His working memory was functioning. He had semantic memory. The fact that you can have a conversation means you can draw upon all the stored words and their meanings in your language, so you can access all this information. He had recognition memory. He could recognize his wife, so the memories of his wife were intact and he could access them. So there's a lot there that was still functioning. Of course, he was able to still play the piano, and he was a skilled musician. So there's a lot of information that was still accessible in Clive's brain. Again, if you can carry on a conversation, it means that your semantic memory is intact, and you can load up all that information in your semantic memory. You can load it up into your working memory systems and carry on a conversation. So both Clive and HM had intact semantic memory and intact working memory system, and so as a consequence, they could both carry on normal conversations. What it was that Clive and HM couldn't do was make new episodic memories. We can see the tragic consequences of Clive's viral infection in some of the pages of his diary. His wife wrote a sort of a touching book about their relationship. And when he was in the hospital, he opened up a diary, started to write in a diary, and the entries in the diary are fascinating. For example, let's see. Here, we'll take this one at 11:26 here, although it looks like he's crossed that out, the timeout. Now I am perfectly, completely awake. First time. But look at all the previous entries. They say very similar things. 9:06 a.m. Now I am perfectly, completely awake. First time. But look, it's crossed out here. So what he would do every 10, 20, 30 minutes, he would make a new entry in his book, and many of them say the same thing. He feels like he's awakening for the first time, and he'll write it down, and then he'll look back at all this other stuff, and he'll say, no, that wasn't me who did that. I don't know what that is, and he'll cross that out, right? See, because each moment he thinks he's awakening for the first time, so this must be rubbish. This is not true, so he'll then go and score it out. If you watch the film about his life, you'll see that he does recognize his wife, so he's got a memory of his wife in his semantic memory, as well as the fact that he loves his wife. He knows that he loves his wife, also something that can be stored in semantic memory. But of course, he also shows emotionally that he loves his wife, and his diaries bear that out. First thought, I love darling Deborah forever. And here's one, hello darling, I love you. So whatever thought is in his working memory system, he can sustain it for the length of time it takes to write it down in a journal. The problem is he can't retain any of this information, so he lives a disconnected, momentary existence. In fact, up here, he compares this existence to death. This illness has been like death till now. Now, why is he comparing this illness to death? Well, he feels like he's always seeing for the first time, always hearing for the first time, always thinking, always playing cards for the first time, always seeing his wife for the first time. It's as if there is nothing that happened before. There is no before anymore. And so what kind of state of mind would be one where you didn't have any sight or hearing or no sensory experiences at all? What kind of condition is that? Death. So let's see what the memory disturbance looks like in the computer analogy. So for both HM and Clive, their problem is that they have a failure to write information to the hard drive. They can read information from semantic memory, so they can access semantic memories loaded up into the working memory system, and that's what you need to do to have a conversation, but they can't write any new data to the hard drive. That critical memory function has been lost in both HM and Clive. Now let's go back to the brain then. Again, we'll put our icon here. The hard drive is going to be the long-term memory system. So what we're going to learn here is that the hippocampus and the temporal cortex down there are critically important for writing new information to the hard drive. And so in both Clive and HM, both with hippocampal damage for different reasons, they have lost the ability to make new episodic memories. And as a consequence, because they can't make new episodic memories, neither can they make any new semantic memories. Because semantic memories, the contents of our semantic memory, originate as episodic memories. So brains where the hippocampus is damaged on both sides, they just can't add any new information to the long-term memory system, what we're calling the semantic memory system.